You're listening to Behind the Mask, the show where we'll come together once a month to discuss mental health. Welcome to the 6th episode of the school year. I'm your host, Ava Gonzalez, and in today's episode, we will dive into perfectionism, a personality trait that leads to a need to constantly strive for perfection, even when it may be unnecessary. This leads to self-criticism and consistently holding oneself to an unrealistically high standard. While a lot of perfectionists are high achievers, not all high achievers are perfectionists. A trait many perfectionists struggle with is all or nothing thinking. This is where one thinks in extremes, and there are only two outcome options: success or failure. If a high achiever gets a 98 on a test, they view it as a positive and an outcome of their hard work. If a perfectionist gets a 98 on a test, they will hyper-focus on the 2 points missing and act as though it was a failure. A fear of failure often pushes perfectionists to do well. This built-up anxiety can lead to procrastination because this person does not want to begin the task until they are sure they can do it perfectly. Perfectionists may also struggle with being concise because they do not see the job is finished until it seems perfect. Ironically, this practice can lead to worse work and act against the perfectionist because spending too much time on one assignment may mean they do not have enough time to do the other assignments to the best of their ability. Perfectionists can struggle with being happy about others' accomplishments. This is because they are constantly comparing themselves. Consequently, perfectionists may avoid new activities and experiences because of a fear of not being the best. A skill to work towards is choosing progress over perfection. A perfectionist may not care about how they get to this goal of being perfect as long as they get there. Therefore, they may not value learning about a subject as long as they get 100 on the test. This is why it is important to reframe these thoughts into valuing progress. Perfectionists can get lost in the process because they cannot see the bigger picture. This often leads to inflexibility with rules or routines. The overactivity that comes with striving for perfection can lead to burnout and obsessive thinking. People often confuse perfectionism and OCD. However, these are two separate entities. And while there may be overlap between the two, having one does not mean the other is always present. Unlike perfectionism, OCD is a mental health disorder where one suffers from obsessions and compulsions. Perfectionism can exist in several areas, including clubs, school, sports, and work. This is where it becomes important to differentiate between the three types of perfectionism: other-oriented, self-oriented, and socially prescribed. Other-oriented is when the perfectionist holds others' performance to a high standard, while self-oriented is being critical of one's own capabilities. Finally, socially prescribed is where one feels it is society placing these unachievable expectations on them, which causes worry and self-esteem issues. Students who find themselves overcome with anxiety pertaining to schoolwork may struggle with dysfunctional academic performance, or DAP. When completing an assignment, a person with DAP may over-edit, over-research, over-study, reread, and rewrite several times. This is not because the student lacks knowledge or produces unsatisfactory work, but because they will only be content with one outcome: perfection. According to the 2021 article published by the National Institutes of Health, COVID-19 caused these increased negative feelings because people were isolated and unable to engage in their usual nonchalant or self-care activities, leading them to become hyper-focused on perfecting school, work, and sports. It is important to acknowledge that as perfectionists age, they may experience increased struggles with neurotic behavior. Perfection is not obtainable, and always striving for it can lead to disappointment and burnout. Perfectionists tie self-worth to performance, which can lead to constant anxiety, guilt, and jealousy. Perfectionism can be tied to other mental health disorders, such as anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and self-harm. This is not just a result of low self-esteem, but because of a need to control. Some perfectionists define their whole life by numbers, including grades, height, sport points, times, and weight. Psychologists recommend overcoming perfectionism by separating yourself from your activities. Begin by making a list of all that you think must be perfect. By seeing the list in front of you, it is easier to be more realistic and break up each goal. Creating more flexible, long-term goals is another way to reframe thoughts of having to be successful at every moment. It is crucial to look at the bigger picture. You can work to challenge unhelpful thought patterns by questioning what's the worst that could happen if you did or did not do an activity the way you anxiously feel compelled to. You could also try breathing and meditation exercises. Another suggestion is to rule out the words should and shouldn't. By using these words, you are often speaking in future or past tense rather than focusing on the scenario in front of you. By using these rules, you are setting up unnecessary personal rules for yourself that can lead to feeling worse in the future. Perfectionism is a desirable quality. It makes one's life more challenging, as it leads to inflexibility, devalues mental and physical health, and ruins relationships at the expense of succeeding. By speaking out about your experience with perfectionism, you can help form a community for those struggling. Forming support groups in real life or even through social media can help people better understand and develop coping skills. Talking about mental health can also help break the surrounding stigma. And with that, we have come to the end of the episode. I hope you found this information helpful and maybe even better understand your own struggles with perfectionism, where they may stem from, and how to battle them. Come back next month to see what else is behind the mask. I'm your host, Ava Gonzalez, signing off. See you next month.